Hello.
Tighten these glasses.
Can I see? Samantha, it's a place you saw me going to.
The place to what?
I was going to the day you saw me.
Oh, really? That's so funny.
You already have two different schools in here?
Is that
No,
not?
I think it's fine if she's going.
I really think I need these glasses.
I think it's,
That's not normal.
yeah, this one needs to be tightened.
Yeah.
And probably you should get them more bent.
More bent.
Oh,
Yeah, but then it gives me a headache, like the pulling on the ear. Like it's like a micro pull.
Yes. Good job.
Wow, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Silly, funny, goofy. Oh, it is longer.
Okay, so we're continuing where we left off last week. We were talking about prophecy. If anyone didn't get the booklet, everyone got last week?
Oh, I might need one.
Okay,
I need one.
okay. Another one? I don't know if I have any more copies. That's it, unless there's something on the table. That's it. Okay, so let me go over briefly what we were speaking about and why we're talking about prophecy. We explained that when the Rebbe spoke to us and told us that Moshiach is near and it's imminent, all the words that he used, which those words themselves were very inspiring. And for a chassid, this gives them confidence that this is really what's happening, just like everything else the Rebbe told us throughout our lives. However, at one point, this was in the summer of 1991, it was the parsha that actually talks about prophecy. And that Shabbos, the Rebbe said that this announcement that Mashiach's coming is imminent is being pronounced as a prophecy. So we said there are a few issues that were raised when the Rebbe said that. I mean, for a chassid, there were no issues raised. Everything was totally fit in that the Rebbe is telling us that this is being said as a prophecy. But the question was, why was it important to emphasize prophecy? Like I mentioned last week, that throughout the years, the Rebbe guided literally tens of thousands of people, told them things that they should do regarding their health, regarding their finances, regarding where to live, regarding what their occupation should be. And in so many cases, it became clear that the Rebbe's guidance was based on a much higher spiritual perception of things, knowing things that the human mind can't know. Because otherwise the Rebbe never would have given this advice. Often it was against the advice of the doctors, against the advice of a lawyer, against the advice of military experts in some cases, definitely against the advice of political experts in many cases. So the fact that the Rebbe gave this advice, and later we saw, there was a famous story at the time, it was written up in the newspapers, that one of the greatest generals of Israel, whose name was Sharon, who later became prime minister, was visiting New York, and he visited the Rebbe, and then the Rebbe asked him about his plans, when he's planning to leave, and he told the Rebbe that when he's planning to leave, which was in a day or two, and the Rebbe told him why he have to rush. He gave him a reason why he should delay his flight, which he did. After he delayed his flight, it was discovered that there was plans to hijack his plane. So these are things that a Rebbe knows because he's a Rebbe. It's a higher kind of vision, not the human understanding and vision. So if that's the case, how come only with this did the Rebbe emphasize that it's a prophecy? So we explained last week that the Rebbe told us about Moshiach's imminence 30 years ago. And as a result of that, 30 years later, and throughout the 30 years, the question keeps popping up. No, imminent. Where is it happening? Why isn't it happening yet? How do you explain it? Maybe it's not going to happen. And it's not that anyone doubts whether the Rebbe was authentic, but maybe there was meant to be something amazing happening, and we blew it. We missed the boat. We did something wrong. Because this did, in fact, happen many times in history, that great sages said there's a time that appears to be suitable or conducive or probable for Mashiach to come, and it didn't happen because we didn't deserve it. We did something that we lost the opportunity. So maybe this is the same. And we explained that by pronouncing it as a prophecy, it made it clear that this is not the same, because it never ever was pronounced as a prophecy. And the difference is, once it's pronounced as a prophecy, it's irreversible. According to Torah, when something's pronounced as a prophecy, it's irreversible. It has to happen. Yeah.
So what do you mean by in the past it was never pronounced as a prophecy? Because I thought that they did prophesize about Moshiach.
Right. But they didn't say that this is being pronounced as a prophecy, which means that when we talk about the ability to see things and know things from a more of a spiritual perspective, there are different levels. In general, there's something called, if you heard the term, Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh means a spirit of holiness, but it's used in this context that there are people that what they say and what they think and what they know is beyond human knowledge and intelligence, but there's a divine inspiration that puts these thoughts into their heads. That's one thing. It's not exactly prophecy. It's the same idea as prophecy, but on a lesser degree, lesser level. Prophecy is something which is stronger, and prophecy is something that has halachic ramifications, and it's written up in the Torah. And that's one of the reasons why I want to do what I'm going to do now, is study a little bit from Rambam, Maimonides, what it says about prophecy. And when something's pronounced as a prophecy, so all these generations, even though they said that this time is conducive to Mashiach, this time will be redemption, but they never said that I'm pronouncing it as a prophecy. So there's a difference.
So all the previous times was the Ruach HaKodesh.
Right, right.
And this time is the only time that it's ever been pronounced
as a prophecy, right.
From the Rebbe.
Right.
Rabbi Majeski.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
My question is, so we take in Chabad, we take the Rebbe's words as prophecy, but there are various Jewish sects that may not take his word as prophecy. So how much majority needs to be involved for something to be considered prophecy?
Not majority and not even one person. If an individual is a Navi, if he's a prophet, then he's a prophet. The fact that people do accept it or don't accept it doesn't change the fact that he's a prophet, which means that Hashem gives him a message that he should give to the people. And I take, for example, Moshe Rabbeinu in Egypt, we mentioned this many times, probably couldn't mention it enough times, that according to some opinions, when he came to the Jews in Egypt and told them, you're going to be going out of Egypt, everyone agrees, it's in the Torah that not all people believed him, but the only question was how much did and how much didn't. So there's one opinion that says that 4/5 of the people didn't believe him, and 1/5 believed him. So even though there was such a huge majority that didn't believe him, it still didn't change the fact that Hashem did speak to him, did give him the message. In fact, if 99.99% of the people wouldn't believe him, it still wouldn't change the fact that he's a prophet and he's giving over something as a prophecy.
Thank you.
And prophecy is a step above the Ruach HaKodesh.
Right. So in this book, we're going to, the second issue was raised is that it appears from certain sources that prophecy is something which only existed in the times of the Beis Hamikdash. But in the times of Geulah, after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, we no longer have prophecy. And that was another question. So for this, there are also sources, many sources, which indicate very clearly that prophecy is not limited to the times of the Beis Hamikdash. In fact, prophecy is something that is relevant at all times. And these are some of the sources we're going to go through, so it becomes more clear. So last time what we did was we read through the Sikha. Today, I want to turn in the booklet. These are copies from other booklets, so the numbers are not consistent, but nevertheless, hopefully you'll be able to find it. Look at where it says on the bottom, 78A. Just start turning the pages and you'll come across it pretty quickly. 78A. This is a copy from the Gomorrah Talmud. Yes, that's it. No, Samantha, you got it. Right there. Yeah. Where it's underlined. It says as follows: Omar Avdimi, Rav Avdimi from the city of Haifa said, from the day that the first temple was destroyed, the power of prophecy was taken from the prophets and given to the sages. So this source doesn't really say that the power of prophecy was totally eliminated. It says it was transferred to the sages. So the Gemara asks, is it really true that no sage before destruction had prophecy? When it says it was given to the sages, it seems to imply that before the temple was destroyed, the sages didn't have prophecy. And now it was sort of taken away from the prophets and it was transferred to the sages. So the Gemara answers, this is what he means to say, that even though prophecy, when the temple was destroyed, although prophecy was taken from the prophets that were not sages, but it was retained, that prophecy was retained even after the temple's destruction by those that are sages. So again, it's a broad subject, a lot of commentary on this, but the one of the points here are that there's two forms of prophecy. One is what we're soon going to see inside, that when a prophet received a prophetic vision, there was a lot going on. It was a really a very big, dramatic, I would say dramatic experience. By the sages, prophecy means that they were studying or they were thinking and they're looking at things, and in a different way, this prophecy, this vision of the future came to them in a much different way, in a way where it was sort of incorporated in their minds and their intellect. In order to understand what I'm saying, we're going to have to look and see what did happen when a prophet received prophecy. And we'll soon see. Let's look at the second page, also Gemara, page 79. So first of all, from that page, it could appear as if prophecy is no longer there. But if you look at the next line, it says clearly it's not by the prophets, but it's by the sages. Okay, let's look again, page 79. Rabbi Yochanan said, from the day that prophecy was taken away, it was given, and look at this interesting list, it was given to people that are deranged and was given to children. So the Gemara says, what? Prophecy was given to deranged people or to children? So he explains to him, it means that not all the time, but sometimes a person who's deranged says something, and in essence, it's a prophetic words that are coming out of his mouth. Children sometimes say something, and it appears as if they're just speaking randomly, but in essence, it's a prophetic words coming out of their mouths. In fact, we're preparing now for Purim. This is one of the things that happened in reference to Purim. I don't know if you learned about it yet with Mrs. Perlstein, did you? No? You don't know what I'm talking about, right? Okay. At the end of the davening every day, there's a part where we say, Al tira mi pachat pisam, don't be afraid. Many shuls, they sing it, there's a song to these words. So you'll notice there are 3 verses there. And it's based on a story that happened in the time of Purim. And the story is that Haman made this decree of annihilating all the Jews. And Mordechai heard the news, he was devastated. The first thing he did was he stopped children that were coming from school and said to one of the children, tell me something you learned today. And he did it 3 times. And in fact, Haman was standing and watching. The first child said the first verse, which is, don't be afraid from fear and from the plans of the wicked people. And Mordechai was very excited because he saw this as a prophetic words, not to be afraid. Then he stopped the next child. What do you say? What did you learn today? And he quoted another verse where it says, these wicked people, they make all sorts of plans and schemes, but nothing will happen. Nothing will come out of it because Hashem is with us. Again, he was very excited. And then he went to the third child and they said the third verse. So Mordechai was very excited and Haman was furious. That's what it says in the Medrash. And Haman said, not only will I annihilate every Jew, but I'm going to start with these children.
Wait, that's kind of random that he just stopped these children as we're coming home.
So it's based on what the Gemara says here, after the temple was destroyed, and that was a time which was after the temple was destroyed, Hashem will sometimes send. Now, it doesn't mean anytime you hear a kid rambling, or chas v'shalom, someone who's not healthy rambling, I should say, oh, there's a prophecy, help. It doesn't always, you need someone like Mordechai to make that judgment. Not any person can make that judgment. He saw this as a prophecy. So this is one of the sources that lead people to think that there is no prophecy after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. There are many sources that there is prophecy, but one of the strongest sources is Rambam. Remember, we keep emphasizing in our class that there's one place which is clear, not a metaphor, not figurative, that's halacha. The Rambam is a book of halacha, and he talks about the criteria to be a prophet, details and laws that pertain to prophecy, and in all the details and all the laws, he mentions no word about a time limit or geographic limitations where prophecy can take place. Some opinions say prophecy can always be in Israel, not outside of Israel. But clearly, in the Rambam, we see that prophecy is not limited to Israel, and it's also not limited only to the times of the temple. So let's look inside to get a little bit of better understanding of prophecy, and we'll also understand the difference between prophecy in those days and prophecy now. So this is chapter 7. You're looking at, okay, in the bottom, look for where it says page 80. And it's a copy of Maimonides. Baruch Hashem, we have Hebrew English. And the first book of Maimonides of the 14 volumes is called The Foundations of Torah. And one of the foundations of Judaism is the belief in prophecy. So it starts off like this. It is one of the foundations of our faith that God communicates by prophecy with man. But prophecy is bestowed only upon a very wise sage. When we say wise in the Torah context, we mean with the wisdom of Torah. As a person who has a strong character. What does strong character mean? It means he's never overcome by his natural inclination in any regard. Instead, with his mind, he will overcome his natural inclination at all times, which means that he never does an Avera, which means a tzaddik. So first of all, a person who's a prophet has to be a tzaddik. That's a prerequisite. Prophecy is not for every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Prophecy is a very unusual, very out of the ordinary revelation of godliness. And that can only come to a person who is suitable for that. And who is that? A tzaddik. So this person has to be wise with knowledge of Torah. On a practical level, he observes all the mitzvahs. He never allows his Yetzer Hara to overcome him. In everything, he overcomes his natural inclination. He also must possess a broad and correct perspective of, I guess, everything in the world. A person who is full of all these qualities and is physically sound, that person is fit for prophecy. When he enters the Pardes, what's Pardes? Literally, Pardes means an orchard. But in this context, Pardes means orchard is a place where you have fruits, things that are really pleasurable, more than what you have growing in a field. And therefore, it's a figurative term to use for the study of the mystical secrets of the universe, the secrets of Torah. When he enters the Pardes, which means he's drawn into these great and sublime concepts, if he possesses a correct perspective to comprehend and grasp them, he will become holy. So he's entering a whole new world, a spiritual world. He will advance and separate himself from the masses who proceed in the darkness of the time. He must continue and diligently train himself not to have any thoughts whatsoever about fruitless things or the vanities and intrigues of the times, which means he's totally and completely immersed in spirituality. As a tzaddik, he's an exceptional person in his spiritual observance. Instead, his mind is constantly directed upward, bound beneath the throne of Hashem, striving to comprehend the holy and pure forms, gazing at the wisdom of the Holy One, blessed be He, in its entirety, from the most elevated spiritual form until the navel of the earth, appreciating Hashem's greatness. And after these preparations, if he's all prepared, the spirit of prophecy will immediately rest upon him. So if someone tells you, I remember once had somebody walked into 770 and he was having this argument about faith. He was a Jewish guy, but he had his own ideas. In fact, he said he created his own religion. He didn't have any followers yet, but he had his own religion. Anyway, I got into a conversation with him and he had some questions and he didn't have answers. So I said, if you don't have answers, then I think you should back off from your new religion. Because if I wouldn't have answers, it means nothing because I'm not the founder of the religion. There are great rabbis, great sages, brilliant minds, and they knew the answers. So I don't know. But if you're the creator of your philosophy and you find it to be full of flaws, it's not holding true, then you should surrender, give it up. He says, no, I know it's true. How do you know it's true? And he says, quietly, God himself told me. That's pretty much when our conversation ended. But God doesn't speak to every single person, even to a person who learns Torah and does mitzvahs and is observant. The Rambam says only a person who's at the level of a tzaddik, which means there's no sin whatsoever, not in thought, not in speech, not in action, at any time, he is holy enough that prophecy should descend upon him. Let's turn the page. When the spirit of prophecy rests upon him, his soul will become intermingled with the angels. He'll feel that he finds himself now in a much higher spiritual presence. There are angels, which there are many levels of angels. There are angels called Ishim. He will be transformed into a different person, will understand with a knowledge different from what is previously. He will rise above the level of other wise men. And like we find Shmuel said to Shaul, King Shaul became a prophet. the Spirit of God will descend upon you. You shall prophesy with them, and you will be transformed into a different person. It's no longer the same person it was before. He's now living on a much higher spiritual plane. The next thing the Rambam says, even amongst prophets, there are levels. Not all prophets are on the same level. Number 2, chapter 2, paragraph 2. There are numbers of levels among the prophets. Just as with regard to wisdom, one sage is greater than his colleague, so too with regards to prophecy, one prophet is greater than another. What does that mean? Either you're a prophet or you're not. How could one prophet be more of a prophet than another? In what way is he more of a prophet? Any suggestions?
Different kinds of prophecies.
And not only that, he says, by the way, that it's just like there are different levels in wisdom. How many levels are there in intelligence? 3?
There's at least 3.
Look at the world. There are 8 billion people in the world. How many levels are there in intelligence of people?
Like 8 billion.
8 billion, right. Really infinite levels of intelligence. If you say 3, maybe a certain categories you're talking about. But in actual intelligence, everybody has more intelligence than the other. One has more, one has less. But there's no limit. It could be infinite levels of intelligence. And the Rambam is saying in that way, there could be so many levels of prophecy. How could it be? Either you know what's going on up there, or you don't know. So the answer is that even if you know what's going on up there, the question is where up there? There's a lot of up there's. We learn in Chassidus that there are 4 spiritual worlds. And we learn that in each world, there are probably infinite levels in each world in itself. So when we say that someone has the ability to see what is going on a higher spiritual plane, which is the source of what's happening here, how far can they see? Can they see into the world of Asiya, the world of Yetzirah, the world of Bria, or the world of Atzilus? So depending how far they see, that's, in other words, just like physically, there's a difference if you look at things and you have a 20/20 vision, or you have a weaker vision, you can't see so far. And some people don't have good vision, but they have good glasses, they can see further. But if you ask them to tell you what they see on the moon, the answer would be nothing. But then if you have a telescope, you can see things that are happening millions of miles away. So that means that there are ways of seeing further and further and further and further. So too spiritually. When we say that a prophet sees things in the spiritual realm, there are infinite levels of depth in the spiritual realm, and one prophet could see more than the other. To give an example, there's a story in Chumash. You will learn the story in Chumash as the Parsha, but in the summertime. And the Parsha I'm referring to is Korach. Who is Korach? Korach was one of the leading figures in the times when the Jews went out of Egypt. He was from the tribe of Levi, which means he was a cousin to Moshe Rabbeinu. But unfortunately, he led a revolution against Moshe Rabbeinu. And his revolution was based on the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu gave his family members a lot of positions of leadership, and he didn't get those, and he claimed that he's just giving it to his family, and he's not really being honest. They had a revolution. Unfortunately, it didn't end well. They begged him to back off, and he didn't. And then Hashem made this miracle that the earth opened up, and he and all the men that followed him were swallowed up by the earth. So Rashi says these words, which of course come from Gomorrah, that this person, Korach, was not an ordinary person. He was a smart person, smart with knowledge of Torah, and he was also a prophet. So how did he do something so foolish? To go stand up against Moshe Rabbeinu, who was so close with Hashem. And Rashi says that because he saw the future. And in the future, he saw that his children, his descendants, will be singing psalms in the Beis HaMikdash. You'll probably remember some of the psalms begin with the words, Shir Mizmar Livnei Korach. This is the song of the children of Korach. So you realize if his children are going to be singing songs in the Beis Hamikdash, obviously I'm not going down. Obviously I'm going to be doing okay because his children were all with him on his team. So what did happen? It says that when the earth opened up in the last moment, his children did tshuva. And because they did tshuva, Hashem saved them. So they survived. So Rashi says these words, that Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy was greater, and he saw what the real story will be in the future. So here's an example of two people that are prophets. One sees to a certain point, and the other one doesn't see to that point. Sees sometimes some people see further, and some prophets see even further. So there are levels in prophecy.
And there's like, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't there like some prophets had like clear like prophecies? Like some of them had like a lot of symbolism that was really vague. Some of them had like clearer stuff.
Right, that's all part of it, that they were able to see clear until a certain point, and after a certain point, it was more vague, it was blurry. Again, we're talking about prophecy, but we're using the terms as if it was physical vision. I mean, there's a story with the Rebbe Marash, where there was a chassid that he was a wealthy chassid, and he had a brother that wasn't doing well financially, but he was very kind, benevolent. Whenever his brother was in a situation where he needed financial help, he would come to the rescue. He'd give him all the money that he needs. Very nice. One day he said to himself, not because he cared about himself, but because he cared about his brother, wouldn't it be a much better idea that I give him a lot of money, set him up in a business, and then he'll make his own money. He wouldn't have to turn to me every time for help. I'd rather give him money to be financially independent than give him money, and he's always begging me for money. But a chassid, before he does something, he asks the Rebbe. So he asked the Rebbe Marash. The Rebbe Marash said, no, I don't agree. It's not a good idea. He was shocked. It made so much sense. In fact, even in Gomorrah, it says, this is greater than tzedakah. When you give somebody money to become financially independent, that's the highest form of tzedakah. Okay. A while later, he just couldn't contain himself. He came back to the Rebbe and said, I have to say that maybe the Rebbe would agree. No, I think he went 3 times. The Rebbe didn't agree. So he didn't do it. One day, another Rebbe came by his town, and he thought, let me ask, he's also a tzaddik. Let me ask him. He has this other tzaddik. He heard about it. He said, yeah, it's a very good idea. It's much better. And then he went ahead and he did it. So he invested money and he established a business, and he was actually doing well. He became wealthy, a good businessman. And for a number of years, he was doing nicely. But one time he went on a business trip. The wagon driver recognized that he has a lot of money with him. So on his way back home, he drove him into the woods. He murdered him and took away all the money that he made business with on the way. And then he realized that's not that the Rebbe didn't want his brother to be financially independent, but he saw that if he would have that money and go into the business world, this would lead him to such an end. So therefore, the Rebbe told him not to become his own businessman. Obviously, the other one saw up until a certain point. He didn't see further, so to speak. What would be the outcome of the outcome of the outcome? So even in spiritual vision, there are levels. So let's continue. And the Rambam goes on to say as follows. They all, however, share certain things which are all in common by all the prophets, which is they receive prophetic visions only in a visionary dream. And even if it's by day, it's after a slumber takes them over, which means they become sort of semi-unconscious. And like it says in the verse, I make myself known to him in a vision. I speak to him in a dream. When any of them receive prophecy, their limbs tremble, their physical powers become weak, they lose control of their senses, but their minds are free to comprehend what they see. In fact, it says this in the Chumash by Avraham Avinu. A great dark dread fell over him. He fell asleep and he saw a prophecy. Or the same as in Daniel. My appearance was horribly changed and I retained no strength. And then he saw a prophecy. So that's number one, all prophets. Number two, when a prophet is informed, I'm turning the page to 83. When a prophet is informed of a message in a vision, So first of all, it's a vision. He sees something. It's usually granted to him in a metaphoric imagery. Immediately, the interpretation of the imagery is imprinted upon his heart and he knows its meaning. In other words, Hashem shows him an image, and then at the same time, Hashem sends a message in his mind how to interpret the image. For example, the ladder with the angels ascending and descending envisioned by the patriarch Jacob. We know the story in the Chumash that he had a dream and there were angels going up and going down. And it's clear that this wasn't just a dream, this was a prophetic dream. It was an allegory for the empires and their subjugation of his descendants, that his children would be in Geulah. In fact, there were 4 rungs on the dream. One of them represents the Romans, one represents the Babylonians, one of them represents other nation, and that's what he was being shown in his dream, the future. Then there's another prophecy in the book of Ezekiel, Yechezkel. The creatures Yechezkel saw, a boiling pot, a rod from an almond tree, envisioned by Yirmiyahu. There was a scroll that Yechezkel saw. The measure that was seen by Zechariah, these are all stories in the prophets, and not a medrash, in the actual book of the prophets itself. So that means Hashem showed them different images, and then they had to understand what the image meant. So some of the prophets would relate the allegory and its explanation. Others would relate only the explanation. They never told us what the allegory was. They would relate only the imagery without explaining it. This can be seen, some of the prophecies, Yechezkel and Zechariah. One of them saw a menorah. Zechariah, for example, saw a menorah. And then came the message, this menorah represents the Jewish nation. So he says that they don't always say what they saw, but we do know what they did see was always an image, and then it came along with an interpretation to the image. So all of the prophecies came in the form of a metaphoric imagery and allegory. Another thing, all the prophets do not prophesy whenever they desire. They can't just receive prophecy. Instead, they must concentrate their attention upon spiritual concepts. Let's turn the page to 84. And they sit waiting in a happy, joyous mood, because prophecy can only rest upon a person when cannot rest on a person when he's sad or languid, only when he is happy. So everyone in this room should know, if you want to receive prophecy at any time, you have to be b'simcha. You'll get it. You just laughed. You're going to get prophecy. This is a very powerful thing. In fact, we find this in reference to Yaakov. We know the story that Yaakov lost his son Joseph, and he was very broken about it. And then eventually they found Joseph in Egypt. It says in the Chumash that Yaakov heard the news, but Techi Ruach Yaakov, and the spirit of Yaakov was brought back to life. What does it mean, brought back to life? The literal meaning was that his sadness went away, he became happy again. Rashi says he got his spiritual prophecy back. And why did it disappear? Because of his sadness, it couldn't dwell upon him, because he was sad. So basically, this is one of the things that are very powerful. It's basically saying the Shekhinah, the divine presence, will not rest on a person unless they're b'simcha. And we spoke about this in the Hasidic Way of Life class, that this is the source. And we see from this how essential simcha is in serving Hashem. So therefore, what would happen if a prophet wanted to see prophecy? They would call their disciples, and they would take a harp, a drum, a flute, a lyre, and they were seeking prophecy, which means they were looking to prophesize. So they created an atmosphere of joy by playing music, and then they would sort of be ready to receive the prophecy. And sometimes Hashem would give it to them, sometimes not. Those who aspire to prophecy, means people who are not prophets yet, but they're on a level that they're becoming more spiritual, and they're sort of growing towards that stage where they want to merit to have prophecy. They're called disciples of the prophets. So even though they concentrate their attention, and even though they're growing spiritually, it is possible that divine presence will rest upon them, and it's possible it will not rest upon them. There's a certain point where they actually become a prophet. but there are certain people that are sort of on the way. I have one more minute. I'll just say this last line, and then next week we'll explain it. Everything we said above applies to all the prophets, the early prophets, the later prophets, with one exception. Who is the exception? Moshe, our teacher, who was also considered the master of all prophets. He did not have a lot of the limitations that we spoke about. How was it with him? To be continued. Stay tuned. What? I want to make sure you come back. I want to ask you for a favor. You know that I don't usually do this. Every other day people call us up, but this is a former student whose baby unfortunately had gone through something. I know the girl's hair said to them, and Baruch Hashem, the baby, generally speaking, had a miraculously recovery and is not in any danger now. Still, there's one more thing that he needs bracha.
Wow, thank
So
God.
if the girls could possibly divide, because it's working, so we can divide it to them again. And hopefully the next report of the doctor will be positive. There's absolutely nothing wrong, perfectly healthy. And the name is, do you still remember it? Should I write it down? The name is Chaim.
I'm Yehezkel.
I have a question for you all. Very, very weird question to ask you all. If, let's say, there's a man holding a baby on top of a large building, and he throws the baby off of the building to the concrete street below with the intention to kill it. Milliseconds before the baby hits the pavement, however many stories below, to absolute certain death, there's a man on the first floor that is swinging with no intention whatsoever besides doing something stupid. They're swinging a machete on the first floor. And milliseconds before the baby hits the ground, is the man with the machete that kills the baby. Who's liable?
The man who dropped it. Well, the guy who dropped the baby is liable for murder on purpose, and the guy who is liable for killing by accident.
I think they're both liable.
Recklessness.
Right.
No, one is manslaughter. and the other is-
He's liable for recklessness, not for murder,
Well, yeah.
It's not manslaughter. Manslaughter is like
when it's
unintentional.
intentional.
So they're both liable.
Yeah, accidental murder is murder, but it's like.
Turn off.
People accidentally kill people all the time.
Yeah.
The other class, that's for you.
They're both liable, but one is
Stop by